Hey guys, I'm back again with another video. We have a brand new phone, so I have to get used to recording on the phone again. And this is clearly just an updated version of the SMB6 enemies, because I forgot to talk about the variants of the enemies, so yeah. It used to be 65 enemies, but then I split the Koopa Clown car and the Fire Koopa Clown car into separate enemies, so then it was 66 enemies. But now there's 70 freaking 75. So it's gonna be pretty long. So we might as well get started now. First up is Mini Boom Boom. So they take 3 hits to kill. On the first hit, they run around and they hide in their shell. That is probably the dumbest way I've taken damage in my entire time playing Mario Maker. On the second hit, they'll just jump around. And then the third hit, they'll run really fast and will attempt to climb up walls just to get to you. The original name is Ack. Next up is Chain Chomp Stack. You place 5 loose Chain Chomps on top of each other, and there you go. They're just loose Chain Chomps, but more deadlier because it's in a stack. And the original name is Axe Stack. Next up, we have Galumba. So they just walk and they fall off ledges. Like, what do you expect? It's supposed to be the first enemy of the game. The original name is Auk. Next up, we have Parabones. So they'll fly up and down while also throwing bones. And these guys are one of the enemies that I'm using in World 6. Also, now's probably a good time to tell you that in World 6, prepare to be seeing a lot of projectiles. A lot of them. Next up, we have Mecha Koopa. And the original name for Parabones is Bonehead Jed. So Mecha Koopas, they'll just walk slowly and they'll try to chase you down. And you can also do this glitch with them, where if you kick it upward at the exact same time they wake up, they'll just, for the regular Mecha Koopas, they'll just destroy any enemy. And the original name is Buckbot. Next up, we have Babomb. So they act like Galoombas, but if you step on them, they get lit up and then they'll eventually explode. The original name is Buck Bomb. Next up, we have Red Spike Top. So they'll just walk slowly on the ground, up walls, and even ceilings. The original name is Buzzbite. Next up, we have Grinder. So these guys are just indestructible saw blades. Like, you can't kill them or anything. And these guys can also be on tracks, which is mainly used in one of the levels in World 4. The original name for them is Buzzsaw. Next up is Chain Chomp. So what they'll do is they'll just hop around for a little bit, and then they'll aim at a direction and then just charge forward. But they can't really go that far because, I mean, look at them. They're literally stuck on a chain. The original name for them is Cageberry. Next up, we have Lava Bubble. So what they'll do is that they'll just jump up and down out of the lava because they're one of the enemies in World 8. But there is no lava here because it's airship themed. The original name for them is Char Char. Next up, we have Jumping Piranha. So what they'll do is that they'll just jump out of their pipe and float slowly back down. Next up, we have Giant Jumping Piranha Plant. It's the same thing, but big. Hey, look at these guys. They're big. Next up, we have Winged Jumping Piranha Plant. It's the same thing again, but they're small and they have wings. But since they have wings, that means they can jump even higher than the previous two. The giant one is only featured in one level, and these guys are like one of the main enemies of World 5. The original name for all three of them is Chomp. Well, to be specific, Jumping Piranha is Chomp, Giant Jumping Piranha Plant is Giant Chomp, and then Winged Jumping Piranha Plant is a Yellow Chomp. Next up, we have Blue Spike Top. It's the same thing as the red ones, but faster. And the original name for them is Cling Cobra. And now we have to switch to underwater. So, next up we have Blurp. And all they'll do is just that they'll swim forward. And that's it. And next up, we have Blurp Blaster. So, the blaster will just shoot out blurps. And I'm gonna tell you this, they don't run out of blurps. So yeah, you barely even get to see blurps out of the blaster. Like most of the time you'll just see blurps being fired from blasters. The original name for both of them is Electra Squid. Because in one level in World 2, the Electra Squids are actually not shot out of the cannons. They're just kind of there. And now we switch back to airship. Next up, we have Fire Parabones. So the Parabones will just fly up and down and shoot bones. And the Fire Piranha Plant on top of the Parabones will aim at a direction and shoot fireballs, making Fire Parabones more deadly. And the original name for them is Firehead Ned. Oh, and also, yeah, you can get Fire Bones. Yeah, that's what I decided to come up with. So if you manage to jump on a pair of bones, it loses its wings and it turns into Fire Bones. Oh, and if you jump on a regular pair of bones, it'll just turn into a regular Dry Bones. So, yeah. Next up, we have Paramuncher. So the paratrooper flies up and down while having a muncher on top of his head. That way you don't jump on his head. The original name is Flaming Tiki Buzz. Muncher hitboxes, am I right? Next up, we have Winged Muncher. These guys are only found in one level. And they just ride around the tracks faster than a normal track muncher. And you can knock them off the track, but they're unkillable. Is that even a word? The original name for them is Flaming Tiki Zine. Next up, we have Piranha Plant. So they'll hop around like 3 times, I think, and then they jump really high. Well, I mean, it's not that high. It's like 3 or 4 blocks high. And they'll just float back down. Next up, we have Fire Piranha Plant. So unlike their brother, they just stand there and they shoot fireballs. But if you're far away, it doesn't really work. Now we switch to underwater. Next up, we have Aqua Muncher. So they're tracked munchers, but underwater. Because I couldn't come up with anything for the Aqua Muncher. The original name for Piranha Plant is Frogoon. The original name for Fire Piranha Plant is Hot Goon. And then for Aqua Muncher, it is Jelly Bob. And back to Airship. Next up is Lakitu. So you give them lit bombs, because if you don't, they just throw spinies. So they'll just try to follow you, and they'll just throw bombs. And if you're careful enough, you can actually throw them back at Lakitu. And you can steal his cloud. So he's only featured in one level, and the original name is Koali. Next up is Digging Mole. These guys are only featured in one level. So if you can't see the Digging Mole, that's kind of the point. You're not supposed to see it at first. But if you get close enough to it, it digs out of the ground and then it just acts like a normal Monty Mole. The original name is Mimic. Next up is Monty Mole. So it's the same thing as the Digging Mole, but they don't dig up. They're mainly found in mineshaft levels. Next up is Mining Mole. So these guys are only featured in one level. And they just sit there. Like, they don't even attack you. They're just kind of there to be an obstacle. Because it's a P-balloon level. And there's pretty much no ground to land on. So if you get hit by these guys, you're pretty much done. So the original name for digging... Oh yeah, I already said the original name. The original name for Monty Mole is Mole Guard. And the original name for Mining Mole is Mole Miner. And now we have a variant of the Mining Mole called the Parachuting Mining Mole. So these guys are mining moles, except they don't stand on top of munchers. And they float down on parachutes. Again, they're just kind of there to be an obstacle. And plus, you don't actually get to see them land on the ground because, like I said, the level just doesn't really have any ground. So they just parachute straight to their death. And the original name for those guys is also Mole Miner. Underwater. Next up is Blooper. So bloopers, they'll just try to follow you. And they're one of the main enemies of World 2. So they do a really great job at being very annoying. Like, try to face up against a group of these guys without a cape feather. You don't know pain until that happens. And back to Airship. Next up, we have Blasta Mecha Koopa. Again, one of the main enemies of World 7. So what they'll do is that they'll walk around for a little bit and then make a sound that goes like, and then they shoot out a red missile that follows you, but then it eventually explodes. So if you really wanted to, you can actually trick the missile into blowing up the Mecha Koopa itself. Oh yeah, you can do this glitch with the Blasta Mecha Koopa where if you kick it upward at the perfect time, it will act the same as normal, but when it tries to shoot a missile, it'll just kill its own missile. So you could use these guys as a slow way of getting one-up tricks. And you can do the same thing with the regular Mecha Koopa, except it'll just straight up destroy through enemies. If it is Zappa Mecha Koopa, it just doesn't work. Like, literally, it just doesn't work. They still shoot out their laser. Speaking of the Zappa Mecha Koopa, next up we have the Zappa Mecha Koopa, which is my favorite. It's my favorite variant of the Mecha Koopa. So they'll walk around for a little bit, and they'll shoot out a blue laser. And that blue laser has some insane reach. Like, it can reach you from, like, over 20 blocks. No, not over 20 blocks. Well, I don't know how far it could go, but let's just say it goes pretty freaking far. And the Shelmet is not going to help you get protected against that laser, man. So the original name for Blast the Mecha Koopa is Pogobot, and for Zappa Mecha Koopa is Pyrobot. Next up, we have Goombud. So these guys are just Galoomba 2.0. What makes them deserve to be 2.0 is because they don't fall off edges. That's literally it. They just don't fall off edges. And the original name for them is Rock. Next up, we have Paraspiny. They're only featured in one level. What they'll do is that they'll fly around, but then turn into a circle and shoot out spikes in 4 directions. And the original name for them is Robubby. Next up, we have Thwomp. So, Thwomps, they just don't attack you if you're far away. If you get close to them, they'll give you that look. See, he's giving me that look because I'm close to him. And if you get even closer, they try to fall on your head and crush you. But you can easily prevent that if you have a Shelmet. And next up, we have the Parachuting Thwomp. These guys are only featured in one level in World 1. And they're just Thwomps, except they fall slower. So the original name for those guys is Screaming Pillar. Next up, we have Upside Down Pacoon, otherwise known as Fire Piranha Plant 2.0. Why are they Fire Piranha Plant 2.0? It's because they just have better aim. Like, seriously, their aim is so good that it's not even funny. Like, look, I'm just standing right here. And if I didn't have a Shelmet, then he would easily kill me. So they just stand on ceilings and they just shoot fireballs at you. Because they just have better aim. And the original name for these guys is Shooting Chomp. Next up, we have Dry Bones. So, for my new lore for World 6, I said the Dry Bone family are now dead Yoshis. Meaning Dry Bones, Parabones, Fire Parabones, you know, all the bones. They're now dead Yoshis. Because the original lore was that Morton is killing all the people trying to climb the snowy mountains. And Morton is a Koopa, and Dry Bones are dead Koopas. So That basically means he's killing his own kind. So now the Dry Bone family are just dead Yoshis. So what Dry Bones will do is that he'll walk for a little bit, and then he'll stop and throw a bone at you. And that bone can travel pretty far. But the bone eventually disappears. Like I said, prepare to see a lot of projectiles in World 6. A whole lot of projectiles. Next up, we have Buzzy Beetle. Oh yeah, the original name for Dry Bones is Skelerex. So Buzzy Beetle, he just walks back and forth. He just walks forward, and he also falls off ledges. Also, that's how the shelmets are made. From dead Buzzy Beetles. And no, you can't just kill a Buzzy Beetle and just expect it to give you a shelmet. You have to place it down. So yeah, you can only find shelmets out in the wild, man. And next up, we have upside down Buzzy Beetle. So it's the same thing, but they're upside down. And yes, these things can climb up ceilings. Just not like a spike top. You have to actually place it on the ceiling. And they don't fall off the ceiling, which is kind of weird. Because they can fall off edges if they're on the ground. So they just act normal, but then if you're close enough, they drop down and they start spinning in their shell. And the original name for these guys is Skittler. Next up is Rocky Wrench. So what they'll do is that they'll jump into the ground, peek out, and then throw a wrench. So they can either throw their wrenches extremely high or extremely low. And just like the bones, those wrenches can travel pretty far. And they also despawn after a while. So these guys are one of the main enemies of World 6. So the original name for them is Scullyrex. Next up is... Oh yeah. You gotta switch to Underwater Man. Next up is the Blue Aqua Flying Muncher. So they come out of a blue pipe and they jump extremely high and then float back down into the pipe. And they'll just crush you to death too. The original name for these guys is Snaggles. Another underwater enemy. Next up we have Cheep Cheep. So these guys are one of the main enemies of World 2. And what they'll do is that they'll just swim back and forth. And the original name for them is Snaps. Oh dang, I forgot about Blooper. The original name for Blooper is Pinchly. Sorry about that, guys. And now, we switch back to Airship. Next up, we have Parabeetle. mostly found in World 4 and 5. So what they'll do is that they'll just fly straight and they'll try to attack you. And you can even ride them. And because you can ride them, it is used a lot in one of the levels in World 5. Like, the level is just all about riding parabeetles. Next up, we have giant parabeetle. It's the same thing, but big. And next up is King Parabeetle. So King Parabeetle is supposed to be a mini boss in a level in World 4. So basically, he tries to send out his army of parabeetles to try and kill you. And when that doesn't work, he will literally chase you down. Like, as soon as you get to the end of the level, he'll just chase you down. But then he'll eventually fall to his death. And again, it takes place in a P-balloon level where there's pretty much no ground to land on. So if you get hit by King Parabeetle or his army of parabeetles, you're screwed. Another underwater enemy, which is Urchin. Oh yeah, the original name for the parabeetle family is Squeakly. Oh, and for King Parabeetle, it's King Squeakly. So these guys may not look like much, but they're supposed to be enemies. Because if you place down spike traps in the Super Mario World underwater theme, they turn into urchins. Like, in only one level, these guys are actually meant to be used as enemies. But every other time, I just use them as underwater spikes. And they're unkillable enemies. Why did I press the home button? So the original name for Urchin is Squidicus. So the next enemy mostly appears underwater, but he actually appears on land as well. I'm talking about bullet bills. They shoot out of their bill blasters, and just like blurp blasters, they don't run out. And the original name for them is Squidly. Next up is Hammer Bro. So, in my opinion, Hammer Bros are one of the most annoying enemies to deal with. Because, like, most of the time they appear in large groups. And you're just going to get hit over and over, man. So, Hammer Bros are supposed to be the weaker of the two. So, the Hammer Bro and the Sledge Bro have some advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages of the Hammer Bro is that they jump really high, but because they jump, it leaves them very vulnerable. So when they jump, that's your perfect time to strike. And they can also throw 2 hammers at once. The downside is that they throw their hammers a lot slower. And they're just weaker. And now we have the Sledge Bro. So the advantages of the Sledge Bro is that they throw their hammers even faster. And when they jump, they do a ground pound, which can stun you. Now, the disadvantages is that they move a lot slower than the regular Hammer Bros. Well, basically, the Hammer Bros and Sledge Bros are just kind of there to, like, protect the ancient temples and ruins in the desert ruins. Like, they're just there to protect the ruins and the temples. And the Sledge Bro is, like, supposed to be... So, Hammer Bros are kind of like guardians, and then the Sledge Bros are like elder guardians. Except they don't have that stupid laser beam, and they don't give you mining fatigue. So the original name for both Hammer Bro and Sledge Bro is Stilts. Like, I just didn't know what I was supposed to use for Stilts. So I was like, I'll just use Hammer Bros, because why not? Next up, we have Wiggler. So what they'll do is that they'll just bounce up and down peacefully. But if you jump on their head, they will get so angry at you that they'll jump even higher, and they'll even start to follow you. So just don't make them mad, man. Next up, we have Spike. Not the terrain feature, the enemy. So what he'll do is that he'll just stand in one spot, and he'll just throw a spike ball at you. The original name for Spike is Tiki Bomber. And for Wiggler, it's Tiki Boing. Another underwater enemy. Next up, we have Fishbone. So what they do is that they swim up and down or left to right. And they only appear in one level, because I kind of used them on accident. So I guess we have fish bones, but they're only used for one level. So yeah. The original name for Fishbone is Tiki Buzz. Alright. Next up is Paratrooper. So it's a red Koopa Troopa, but they have wings. And they just fly up and down. And when they lose their wings, they act like a normal Koopa Troopa, except they don't fall off edges. Oh, and also, speaking of red Koopas, depending if it's green or red, they actually play a meowing sound effect and a dog sound effect. So here's what the green one sounds like. Well, that kind of failed. The green one plays a dog sound effect. Oh, and yes, different enemies make different sounds on the music blocks. So for Mario and his friends, they play this sound effect. Oh, and here's the red one. Yeah, that was supposed to be a meowing sound effect, but it was so deep that it literally didn't sound like it at all. And the original name for Paratroopa is also Tiki Buzz. Next up, we have Giant Koopa. So it's a green Koopa Troopa, but big. Oh yeah, I have to... Oh, and many people don't notice, but you can place sound effects on your character. So if it's a mineshaft level, it will play this song. And if it's a P-Balloon level, it will play this sound. So yeah, if it's a P-Balloon level, it'll play the Super Mario Kart music. And if it's a mineshaft level, it will play the N64 music. The original name for Giant Koopa is Tiki Doom. Next up, we have Koopa Troopa. It's the same thing, but small. The original name for these guys is Tiki Goon. Oh, and if it's a boss level, it will play the boss music. So you can't just attach sound effects to yourself, but also to different enemies. So that's how I get the boss music in there. It plays when you start fighting the boss, and then after you defeat the boss, it stops playing. Next up, we have Bull's Eye Bill. So it's Bullet Bill, but red, and they try to home in on you. So it's basically a Blaster Mega Koopa, but the missile doesn't explode. The Bullet Bills just stop following you after a while, which is kind of weird. And the original name for these guys is Tiki Seeker. Next up, we have Spiny. So Spiny is just Buzzy Beetle, but more deadly since he has spikes. So the original name for these guys is Tiki Tank. Next up, we have Pokey. So what they'll do is that they'll just walk super slowly, and they'll just try to run into you. And just like Spinies, they're deadly as well, since, I mean, Pokies are cactuses. Like, what do you expect? But somehow you can just spin jump on top of them perfectly fine. Because that makes all the sense. The original name for them is Tiki Torch. Next up, we have Giant Paratrooper. I just used this guy in my most recent level. So it's just a paratrooper, but big. And the original name for them is Tiki Torp. Next up, we have Tracked Muncher. So there you go. That's a Tracked Muncher. They go all sorts of directions because, I mean, it's tracks. And you can knock them off the track. Next up, we have Giant Tracked Muncher. So it's the same thing, but big. The original name for those guys is Tiki Zinger. Yeah, Tiki Zing. Next up, we have Loose Chain Chomp. So there you go. That's a Loose Chain Chomp. They're just ready to bite someone. And the original name for these guys is Toothberry. Next up, we have Lava Bubble Train. So you place tracks in a rectangle, and then you place 4 big lava bubbles. And then you place all 4 of them on the track. And make sure they all go in the same direction. So there you go. That's the Lava Bubble Train. The original name for those guys is Ultra Char Char. Next up, we have Koopa Clown Car. This is probably the most complex enemy of them all. So really, they're not even an enemy. Like, they just bounce and they just sit there. But if an enemy takes control of it, they'll try to bump into you. And you can also ride them. And these guys are used a lot in one of the levels in World 5. And also, because you can fly with these things, I had to cheese-proof the level. Oh, and guess what? Even coins can take control of a clown car. And the coins will try to kill you. Like, it's coins. What did I ever do to you? So let's say... Let's say a Hammer Bro lands in the clown car. But sadly, you guys will never get to see a Hammer Bro inside of a clown car. Wait, hold up. Did he just throw a hammer? I did not know that. Guys, I did not know this. I didn't know that if you hold them for a long time, they start throwing hammers. So yeah, let's say a Hammer Bro lands inside of a clown car. It'll take control of the clown car and they'll just try to bump into you, while also throwing hammers. Oh, and Koopa clown cars are unkillable enemies. Like, it's a free ride. Why would it ever be killable? Next up is Fire Koopa clown car. Try saying that 5 times fast. So it's the same thing, but you can shoot fireballs. And if you charge it up, you can shoot a big fireball. These guys are also used in one of the levels in World 5. And they're just used to, like, break blocks and stuff. Like, you can break blocks with these things. Like, say you can't get past a wall of hard blocks. Well, you could just take control of the Fire Clown car and boom, it breaks them. And let's say another Hammer Bro lands inside of a Fire Clown car. They'll try to do the same thing, but they ride it even slower because they're trying to charge up for a fireball. And also, the bigger the enemy, the bigger the fireball. And now let's compare it to Sledge Bro. See, the clown car gets even bigger. But then let's say Bowser gets inside of a Fire Clown car. And you guys will never get to see Bowser in a clown car. The clown car is at its biggest. So yeah, the original name for Koopa Clown Car is Wiggle Vine, and Fire Koopa Clown Car is the small Wiggle Vine. Underwater. Next up, we have the Red Aqua Flying Muncher. Try saying that 5 times fast. So it's the same thing as the blue one, except they shoot out of the pipe faster. Like, these things are deadly. Oh, and the Aqua Flying Munchers are also featured out of water in one level. And the original name for these guys is Yellow Snaggles. And now we're on to the bosses. So next up, we have Larry Koopa. He is the boss of World 1, the Jungle Grasslands. And he's the one responsible for sending enemies to cut down all the trees to turn them into more enemies, I guess. I don't know. See, that's why it's called jungle grasslands, because it used to be a jungle, but then they cut down most of the trees, turning it into a grassland. So obviously he's the first boss of the game, so obviously he's going to be the easiest one and the most basic boss. So what he'll do is that he'll just jump and shoot magic projectiles. You know, we might as well put the boss music on him while we're at it. So on his first hit, he'll shoot only 1. On his second hit, he'll shoot 2. And on his third, he'll shoot 3. Oh, and at the boss level, after you defeat the boss, there's supposed to be like a transition to the next world. But the transition from World 1 to World 2 is just nothing. Like, you can't place water in this game. So what did you want me to do? Next up, we have Boom Boom. So he's the first boss of World 2. The lake/sunken pier. Yeah, you could call it the lake or the sunken pier. I don't really care which one you call it. So he is one of the people responsible for sinking the pier down underwater. And he acts like a mini Boom Boom. And he's actually the only boss that doesn't like shoot a projectile at you. The Koopalings and Bowser Jr., they shoot magic projectiles, but Bowser Jr. doesn't have magic projectiles, he just shoots fireballs. And then Bowser, he shoots bigger fireballs, but Boom Boom just has nothing. He has no projectiles. Next up, we have Bowser Jr. He is the second boss of World 2. And also one of the people responsible for sinking the pier down underwater. So what he'll do is that he'll just hop back and forth and shoot 3 fireballs at one time. And he also ground pounds. And originally, I was going to give him wings so that he can throw hammers. But the fight takes place underwater and the hammers are way too slow and so easily avoidable. Next up is Roy Koopa, the third boss of World 2. And also one of the people responsible for sinking the pier down underwater. And he's like supposed to be like the leader of the group. And he shoots pink magic projectiles. And he'll also dig into the ground and come out from a random spot. And if he comes out from the ceiling, he'll do a ground pound. Oh, and each boss has a phase. Well, I mean, except Larry, because, like, he's the first boss of the game. What did you want me to do? So after you defeat all 3 of them individually, they'll all stack up, and they'll try to take you on all at once. Bowser Jr. is on the bottom, Boom Boom is in the middle, Roy's on the top. So what I like to do is that I take out Bowser Jr. first. And also, Roy's gonna try to shoot magic at you to prevent you from hitting Bowser Jr. That was not supposed to happen. And then after Bowser Jr. is defeated, I take out Boom Boom because he's easy. But then after Boom Boom gets hit once, Roy just like gets dropped onto the ground, and then he'll try to fight you too. So yeah, that's phase 2. Next up is Lemmy Koopa. Lemmy Koopa is the boss of World 3, the Desert Ruins. And he's the one responsible for drying out all the water in the Desert Ruins. And Lemmy Koopa actually has a ride. He doesn't just take you on. He uses his clown car. And he'll just shoot balls at you. Pause. So on his first hit, he'll shoot 1. On his second hit, he'll shoot 3. And on his last hit, he'll shoot 5. And you know how each Koopaling, when they get hit, they spin in their shell and then jump around while in their shell? Well, Lemmy here, he just spins in his shell while also riding the clown car. And what he'll try to do is bump you around with his balls, paws, and his clown car to push you into bombs that are ready to explode right on your face. And after Lemmy is defeated, the clown car is now yours. But you don't get the ticket to the second phase. Alright, here's the second phase. Lemmy grows wings and gets a fire Koopa clown car. That way he can ride slightly faster and he can shoot this huge fireball. So now you got a million things to worry about. The bombs ready to explode on you. Lemmy's balls, paws. The freaking clown car pushing you around. And also the fireball. It's like a Cuphead boss. You just gotta worry about a million things at once while also trying to fight the boss. I've actually never played Cuphead in my life. So that's the boss of World 3. Next up is Wendy O. Koopa. She's the boss of World 4 and the one responsible for damaging the cave by sending mining moles to mine all the diamonds. Oh, and this is what the diamonds actually are. They are icicles. Yeah, icicles were the closest thing that I could find to crystals. And since diamonds are crystals, well, I just used icicles. So, there's actually 4 phases to the boss. The first 3 phases, you actually fight the moles that Wendy sent out. And basically, there's just like this on-off conveyor belt. And there's a bill blaster at the bottom that shoots a shelmet and hits an on-off switch. So when it's red, it goes to the right, but then when it's blue, it goes to the left. And it progressively gets more difficult. Because in the second phase, the conveyor belts are faster. And then in the third phase, the conveyor belts are still fast, but it switches on and off even faster. But then when you actually get to phase 4, you actually fight Wendy herself. And it's the same thing, on-off conveyor belts. It switches from left to right, depending if it's blue or red. And she is actually tricky to fight without taking damage. Because the conveyor belts are constantly switching directions, well, that gives her the perfect time to jump and shoot rings. And let me tell you, she will literally always jump as soon as the conveyor belt switches directions, which causes you to slip up and it causes you to take damage. Like, trust me, it's super hard to fight her without taking damage. Next up is Iggy Koopa. Iggy is the boss of World 5, the forest, and the one responsible for flooding the forest. So Iggy has 3 phases. The first phase, well, he just walks back and forth while shooting lime green magic projectiles. And speaking of his magic projectiles, Iggy's magic projectiles are like the fastest out of all of them. So yeah, he might catch you lacking, man. Just like he did. Like, he literally just caught me lacking right there. Ooh, that was too close. See, Iggy is a trickster. So when he's trying to run back and forth, he'll try to bait you into jumping on him, but then he'll like walk back and it causes you to take damage. And then the second phase, it's the same thing, but there's an upside down pack gun trying to make it more difficult. So now you got more projectiles to worry about. You know, what is up with SMB6 and projectiles? And then the third phase, Iggy grows wings. So instead of walking back, he jumps back and forth. And the upside down pack-gun is still there. And I placed the upside down pack-gun high enough so that you can't kill it, and so that Iggy also doesn't kill it. And now from here on out, spoilers for the rest of the bosses. Next up, we have Morton Koopa Jr. So Morton is the boss of World 6 and the one responsible for ruining all the Yoshi's habitat. So what he'll do is that he'll hop around for a little bit and then jump super high in the air and do a ground pound. And when he lands on the ground, 2 fireballs come out from the sides. And those fireballs could travel up walls and ceilings. And the ground pound also stuns you. And occasionally he'll also shoot magic projectiles. So I actually haven't come up with the actual boss fight idea. But here's what I got in mind. So phase 1 is just what I just showcased. And then for like phase 2, there could be like burners coming from the left and right. Oh yeah, that's perfect for phase 2. And then phase 3, he will grow wings so that it can be slightly harder. Because when he has wings, he'll try to bait you into thinking he's about to ground pound. So now you got to worry about Morton himself, the burners, the fireballs, and the magic projectiles. So yeah, maybe that will be the boss fight for World 6. But who knows? Next up is Ludwig von Koopa. And yes, it's pronounced Ludwig, not Ludwig. So phase 1 is kind of complicated because I couldn't actually come up with an actual idea. So the original boss, he like controls a huge robot and it walks left to right. In phase 1 of that boss fight takes so long that it's not even funny. And obviously I can't just build a robot in this game. So maybe I'll do like a puzzle for phase 1. I don't know. But then for phase 2, he'll just jump up into the air and start fluttering in the air. Oh, and Ludwig shoots his magic projectiles the fastest. The magic projectiles themselves aren't that fast. He just shoots them the fastest. Oh, and Ludwig is the one responsible for kicking out all the factory workers. The reason why he does that is so that he can make Mecha Koopas and bombs. So that he could kill Mario and his friends. So in his first and second hit, he'll shoot 3 at a time. But then on his last hit, he'll shoot 5. 5! Oh, and then maybe there could be like Zappa Mecha Koopas on the sides. Let's see how that works. Oh yeah, this is perfect. Yeah, maybe I could use Zappa Mecha Koopas for the second phase. But obviously I have to put the Zappa Mecha Koopa far back enough so that you can't just reach over there and kill it. Yeah, that's perfect for phase 2. And finally, we have the big man himself, the leader of the Koopas. Bowser, the final boss. I mean, it's not really that big of a surprise that he's the final boss, but he's there. So Bowser is the boss of World 8, obviously. And he's the one responsible for making all the Koopalings do all the bad stuff that they did. And the one responsible for capturing Princess Peach. So I don't really know about the first phase. But for like the second phase, it could be like the classic bridge fight, but slightly harder. Oh yeah, we gotta put on the final boss music. I'm trying to place the final boss music on Toadette. Oh, and you can't just expect to kill Bowser so easily. Because he takes so many hits that it's pretty much not even worth killing him. So yeah, he just does stuff. Like he shoots fireballs into the air. Oh, maybe phase 1 could be like a survival test or something. You know, I should switch it to castle theme. So I can't just use the ground because Bowser would be way too hard to avoid. And again, I can't use one-way walls because it'll be hard to avoid. So yeah, maybe it could be something like this. Oh, and obviously you're not going to have a shelmet for the bosses. You know, I could just be mean and not give you a power-up for the final boss, but I'm nice. So maybe for the classic bridge fight, you could like... That's not supposed to happen. And you can't just damage boost through Bowser because it's Super Mario World. So yeah, for phase 2, I guess you could just wait for him to jump. And then that's your time to go straight to the axe. Because you can't. Yeah, this is perfect for the classic bridge fight. Because you can't just damage boost through Bowser. And the bumpers will prevent you from jumping over him. Since Bowser can go through bumpers, but you can't. Woo, that was too close. So the original name for all of the bosses, so Larry Koopa is Crazy Kalimba / Mugly. Boom Boom Bowser. So Boom Boom is the Purple Maraca / Orange Crab. Bowser Jr. is the Green Maraca with, / freaking Blue Crab. Roy Koopa is the Red Maraca / Red Pirate Crab. Lemmy Koopa is Gongo / Stew. Wendy Okoopa is Banjo Bottom / Mole Miner Max. Iggy Koopa is Wacky Pipe / Mango Ruby. Morton Koopa Jr. is Xylabone, / Thugly. Ludwig is Cordian / Colonel Pluck. And Bowser is Tiki Tong. But what happens if you beat the final boss? Well, what happens if you collect all key coins in every level in all 8 worlds and beat the final boss? You unlock World 9. But what happens if you beat World 9? What happens if you beat World 9 and every level as every character? Well, that's supposed to be a secret. I'm not telling you guys that just yet. So thank you guys for watching this super long video. And I have a level to make, so bye.